This is a quick Warden Zens MK healer build that you could use. So just to start off real quick with the skills, pretty important. You always want to keep combat prayer on unless you're doing something like kiting, front kiting in bass hard mode or bass. So you definitely keep that on. I like to keep overflowing altar on as the warden. If there's another warden in the group, you can drop this as long as they're keeping that up, or other warden support. Radiating regen is a good flex spot to use if you need to keep up heals for people a little bit spread out. It's nice to keep on. Expansive frost cloak, you'll want to keep that on unless there is a tank using it. And this gives major resolve to the group, which is great. Northern Storm you can keep on, otherwise you can toss on a barrier. Reviving barrier is another good one. If you have the passive that helps with your mag recovery. You'll definitely want to keep growing Swarm on. Like I said, unless another warden is using it, a DPS or a tank. I use the stamina morph, so I can use this to keep up martial knowledge a bit easier. It's a good stam dump. And this gives the minor vulnerability to the targets. Shock Reach, this is an option for a Zen Stot. This one also does a Zen Stot, by the way, as does the Structured Entropy, or you can use Degeneration, the other morph. There are several different options. I like to keep 3 to 4 on the bar, and then have my Flame and Poison enchants as the other dots, generally 3. And Blockade, if you have good uptime from other support, you can take it off as a flex as well. And Energy Orb is good to keep on as a nice heal. And then Budding Seeds. If you notice, I did not have Illustrious Healing on. If you really feel you need that, you can put that on as well, but this usually is enough and has the synergy for the tanks and for the DPS to use if they need to. Aggressive Horn, you want to keep that on your bar. So since I mentioned these are single target dots, you cannot use like a multi-target dot. So you can tell if it is by the wording. So this says Devastate an enemy, so that's how you know it's single target. And this one is Attack an enemy, and this one is Bind an enemy. So that's how you know. Those are some dots. That's the only Warden class one is the Flies or the Swarm. And Destructive Reach is what I like to keep on the back bar. If your other healer is running Alley Drain, you don't need to keep that on. Usually you have enough to keep up with. So you usually have the other healer run that in the group. A couple other flex things you could have on Ward Ally, just have Healing Ward for PCR Hardman right now. Would not bother with a personal shield. Circle of Protection or Trap Beast can be good stam dumps. I just don't have these morphed. The Trap Beast is also a single target dot, so it triggers that on the enemy. Okay, and Mage's Guild, you could use Structured Entropy or you could use Scalding Rune. You have to have this morph for it to work. Okay, and that's about it for your options on the single target dots. So that's just the general bar setup I would like to use. Like I said, there are several flex spots. So for your setup, I happen to be using the Asylum just because I keep up Blessing of Protection. This just helps with my regeneration, mag regen, because you can see it's not super high and I don't have the net John. That's another flex skill that you can use up in here. So you can flex on the Blue Betty or Enchanted Growth for the Intellect and Endurance. And that's about it for those flex spots. Back to the inventory here, I just happen to have this one with the flame enchant charge is good to do. You could also do infused, overpowered if you needed to. The important thing is you can single bar Zens, but you would not want to single bar Master Knowledge. And I have, this one is infused with the poison damage. Probably wouldn't change that one. And as you can see, your light attack applies the touch of Zen to enemies for 20 seconds. And it helps them take more damage. So it goes up to 5%. That's why I have 3 skills and 2 enchants. You just have to really make sure if you're going to only use 3 single target dots that you keep up your light attack weaving as you would on a DPS. I happen to have all light on her, but usually go medium, one heavy, and the rest light. Symphony's a good one to keep on, and make sure that your gear is Divines are infused. I happen to have a max health enchant on this one, but usually you can do all magicka. I just don't have any points into health on her, so I have the enchant on instead. Literally, so you can do that. I usually have a mix of divines and infused. So for your jewelry, I have infused mag recovery on one of them just to keep it above like 1300, and then infused spell damage on the other ones. You can use arcane if you'd prefer. It just depends on what you want to do with your setup. I just like to have the more spell damage, the better with this. Okay, so as far as the champion points goes, we'll go ahead and bring that up for you in just a sec. Okay, so I do change between healing and Zen's ones, so let me double check to see if my champion points are correct. And it looks like I don't have this one set up, so I'll just do that real quick. Just to show you what your champion points would be for that. You would take everything out of Blast, which feels kind of weird on a healer, but you want the Elemental Expert in instead so that your dots do better. Don't need anything in Dispel Erosion. And you'll want your direct damage attacks to do more damage also. And you'll only need to have, you don't need to put a lot of damage into that. Thaumaturge, because it's your damage over time, and you want to be able to use off balance, so you're kind of like a DPS in this. So you should get pretty good DPS out of that. Also, the food that I'm using with this setup is 5-stat food, so it's just this general max health, max mag. You can also use the RTM, gives you just a little bit more, as you can see. And for the Warden, you want to keep on, you can have spell damage ones or use the Alliance pots. If I put on the Netch, then I use just the spell crit and intellect, and I like to put movability on it. It's just a nice little extra. Okay, so for the martial knowledge, this one you have to do light attack, so you make sure your light attack weaving, and you can get it on every 8 seconds, but for 5 seconds, so you're never going to have 100% uptime like you could with the Zens. Okay, so to show you on this guy right here, you can always dodge roll before your fight starts and hold block so you won't regen, and that way you can get your martial knowledge on right away. But you want to make sure that you start with your light attack, so it's kind of an example of a rotation that you might do. As you can see, my flies just got up. And the flies keep it out pretty well. Okay, so that's just kind of an example of how that would work. So if you could see the timers up top, the Zens is that green one that's counting down 11, 10, 9. And I'll show you what the martial knowledge one looks like. Okay, so it's that one counting down from 2, and then that's my flame one. So I can't keep that up all the time. As you can see, it's down for 3 seconds, then it's back up again. And I'm not putting on my Zens because it's just on my back bar. So that's what the Zens ones look like. But as you can see, if I keep light attacking on my back bar, as long as I have my stam down, then you'll get the martial knowledge on there also. Okay, so that's pretty much how it works for Zens on a Warden. Let me know if you have any questions.